What's going on YouTube? So the Toyota Highlander requires no introduction, since it has long been one of the best-selling midsize SUVs on the market. But that market has been demanding more and more space, so rather than just upsizing the Highlander endlessly, Toyota decided to introduce a new, bigger model, the Grand Highlander. There are a lot more differences between these two than just the size. So you and many YouTube commenters might be wondering, is it worth the extra money? Well, that's the question we're going to answer today. So first off, let's quickly establish the pricing from the start. For the regular Highlander, we have the top trim called Platinum in Toyota speak. After a few extra options and destination, the final price is $54,408. For the Grand Highlander, we also have the fully loaded Platinum trim, which is going to cost a few more bucks for sure. After a few options, we arrive at a final price of just over $60,000. By the way, if you want to get the best price from local dealerships and access to invoice pricing information for these two models or any vehicle, we have a tool on our website to do just that. Check the link in the description for more information. But as far as this comparison, it will be conducted in an objective way. We have done our best to weigh the points awarded throughout in major and minor categories. And at the end of the comparison, we will sum up with our thoughts and revisit that price difference for a value assessment. With that being said, let's get into this comparison. Starting here with the exteriors, it should be pretty obvious that this is not just a simple upsizing as soon as you see them. Toyota worked to give the Grand Highlander its own look, which is bolder and more squared off than the Highlander. If anything, it looks more like the RAV4, especially where the grille meets the standard LED headlights. All the lighting is LED on both Highlanders, with the small exception of the regular Highlander missing out on LED turn signals. But the standard Highlander's headlights are also adaptive, which is something that the Grand Highlander doesn't offer. Moving to the side, this is the place where the 6.5-inch size difference is most easily observed. We will talk extensively about how this impacts the interior space, third row, and cargo capacity later in this comparison. But as far as visual elements, we have 20-inch alloy wheels on both of them. In the back, again the GH will have more LED lighting elements in the taillight cluster. Both of them have exposed wipers, and then only Grand Highlander has exposed exhaust outlets. Now checking out some of the individual features, both of their mirrors have heating, blind spot monitoring, puddle lamps, and power folding. Safety is very important, so in addition to blind spot monitoring, both also include the latest active safety features Toyota offers. The Grand Highlander also adds in a traffic jam assist function. Towing-wise, both models can handle up to 5,000 pounds. But the luxury and comfort of the cabins are far more important than the exteriors, so let's get to that. But first,
if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
As we walk towards the interiors, both models have smart entry as you would expect. And then, after opening up the doors, you'll be surprised at just how different the interiors are. Before we get into all the design and feature differences, let's first discuss the seats. On the regular Highlander, we have quilted real leather seats in the glazed caramel color, and the Grand Highlander has a leather and suede combination seat, also in an exclusive color called Portobello. Neither of the seats have any extra adjustments beyond the standard 10 ways, and both of them have heating, ventilation, and memory. Once we fully climb inside, we can get into the overall material quality. In this area, grand doesn't mean added luxury, since the material choices are largely the same between these two models. It's actually the regular Highlander that pulls ahead, with a few more leather padded surfaces, piano finish on the climate knobs, and a faux wood that adds richness compared to the strange black trim found on the Grand Highlander. After startup, you'll see 12.3-inch digital gauge clusters on both, with slightly different graphics. Both also have large head-up displays, rain-sensing wipers, and very similar leather-wrapped steering wheels with manual adjustment. Now let's talk about the overall interior storage, which is a huge area of importance for these two. The center consoles are massive on both, fitting 23 and 24 donuts inside, respectively. We also have big storage areas in the front, which include wireless phone charging pads, and even passenger storage shelves. Overall, we will call this section even. Moving on to the shifters, if you're a fan of traditional ones, you will like the Highlander better. Regardless though, the 360-degree camera systems are the same. As far as climate, both have 3-zone automatic setups with easy-to-understand layouts. The only difference is the cheapness of the finish on the Grand Highlander's buttons, which I already mentioned. And now that brings us to the volume knobs, so let's give the audio systems a sample. As you might expect, they both have the same sound quality from the same speaker count. Now let's take a look at the screens. Both of them have large 12.3-inch displays that are running the same new Toyota software system. That gives them navigation and wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as well. Last but not least, for the front of the interiors, both models have digital rear-view camera mirrors and large panoramic sunroofs. But now, let's move into the rear spaces, because this is probably the reason you are considering a Grand Highlander in the first place. While similar and quite spacious, it's actually the regular Highlander with 3.7% more legroom in the second row. That falls below the 5% difference required to score a point though. The features list is also largely the same. There are rear climate controls, vents, 2 USB ports, household power outlets, and heated rear seats. You might notice that the Grand Highlander has a couple extra buttons in this area, and that's because it also has ventilated rear seats, which remains a rare feature to find. These top trims have captain's chairs with cup holders in between them, and bench seating is available on other trims. Lastly, they both have window sunshades. Now let's head to the next row of seats. Here the space measures will certainly reverse, with the Grand Highlander having a big advantage. It has nearly 19% more legroom, which contributes greatly to the enhanced comfort. And even though the headroom figures are very similar, that's really because the Grand Highlander elevates the seats to give you a much better thigh support than the Highlander. Both of them fit 3 seats back here, have vents and cup holders, but only the GH has USB ports. Okay, so it's cargo time now, one of the most critical elements. The Grand Highlander dominates the Highlander here, and catapults itself to one of the largest family crossovers on the market. Behind the third row, we have 28% more space, 20% more space with the third rows folded, and a 16% overall advantage with the maximum configuration of all rear seats folded. Both of their third rows are manually folding. They have spare tires, and only the Grand Highlander has a 1500 watt outlet in the back. Alright, that's it for the interiors. So now let's take this close fight to the streets. When it comes to what's under the hood of these two, there are similarities and differences. Both can be powered by a regular 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and a 2.5-liter hybrid system. But the Grand Highlander also has one extra option. If you want the highest end Platinum, then you get the Hybrid Max system, which combines the 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with the electric componentry for a total system output of 362 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. That is an exclusive advantage over the Highlander with its 265 horsepower. Now we won't get all the way up to 60 miles an hour because we do have a little bit of traffic backed up, but that's a good sampling of the acceleration here with this 2024 Highlander. Now, if you watched our 2023 Highlander review, you know when Toyota refreshed this, they made major changes under the hood.
Yeah.
That major change is, of course, that the V6 has been discontinued, and in its place you have a 2.4-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine. To remind you of power output, it's 265 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which are good numbers. 60.
It pulls hard.
Yeah. Definitely. From the first time that we experienced this, it really was impressive in terms of power, and throughout the 7 days, it just continues to impress by how effortlessly it moves what is ultimately a pretty big SUV, but having the extra power versus, what you can get on a lot of the competition, I think is a huge benefit. As far as the other elements, torque and packaging requirements mean that the Grand Highlander Hybrid Max is actually rocking an old-school 6-speed automatic transmission, compared to an 8-speed automatic in the Highlander. While the 6 is still smooth, the Highlander's transmission is quicker and has more gears to choose from. It's a little passing power demonstration there. Really nice, yeah. The torque and also the 8-speed automatic transmission that we have on board as well. Nice and responsive. As soon as I put my foot down, downshifted, got me the power I needed.
And I also really like that this Hybrid Max has a traditional transmission. So you may have seen that in our acceleration there. This actually has a 6-speed automatic transmission. So unlike the other hybrid version, so the traditional hybrid, that will have a ECVT, you're going to have a lot more of a traditional experience with this Hybrid Max with its 6-speed automatic.
But it's definitely not all about speed, since comfort is more important for family crossovers. In this regard, both absolutely nail the ride quality, with extremely plush rides that isolate out all but the largest potholes. As you would expect, that does mean the suspensions are pretty soft when cornering. Despite some moderate body roll, both still feel controlled and smaller than they are.
But just kind of cruising down the highway here, I do want to take a second to talk about your ride quality in this Highlander. The Highlander is one of those vehicles, every single time I get inside of it, it just has that premium ride characteristic that I'm looking for in a family SUV like this. I think it rides phenomenally. Compared to the Grand Highlander, I think they're going to ride very similar to one another. And here in this Platinum model, it really does feel like a Lexus through and through. And while we're just kind of cruising along down this highway, I do want to just go ahead and leave off the performance for a little bit and dive into ride quality, because this is a Grand Highlander after all. It's really designed just to bring your family along for long road trips, which, like we said, we did do this week. And I have to say, very, very impressive. I absolutely love the way that they've done the suspension in this Grand Highlander. It soaks up the bumps super well. The seats are very comfortable over long road trips and long periods of time.
In addition to having comfy rides, a big thing we like to test out here at Car Confections are the sound level readings. Measuring them at 55 miles per hour, the Grand Highlander proved to be substantially quieter, since a 1 decibel difference is considered noticeable by the average adult. By the way, you can find all our sound level readings for all the new cars we test at carconfections.com/sound level readings.
Our signature sound level reading in Kentucky here, we'll make sure fan speed is on 1. Alright, I made sure I got a longer sound sample there. 59.9 decibels is our official Car Confections sound level reading. .5 decibels seems to be the number that we have settled in at for this Toyota Grand Highlander on our home stretch of road here in Kentucky.
And lastly, for fuel economy, this is one of the coolest things about the Hybrid Max setup. Despite making big power, it still gets great fuel economy, beating the regular model by 12.5%. Before we wrap up here, we have to talk about value and revisit the price difference. $5,610 is a lot of money to most people. So, according to our scale, we will give the Highlander 2.5 points to balance that out. But as always, I'll remind you that if money doesn't matter as much to you, then feel free to disregard these points. So, there you have it. The objective winner is the Toyota Grand Highlander. But when the value proposition is considered, the Highlander fights back. Let's quickly summarize to find your personal winner. So the Highlander should be your winner if you prefer the better price tag, the same general features, and that sleeker design. The Grand Highlander should be your winner if you like that exclusive Hybrid Max powertrain or need the extra horsepower. If you want more cargo capacity and one of the best in the entire segment, and if you also want the better third row. But now we want to hear your all's opinion in the comments below. Which one would you pick? Anyways, thanks for joining us for another Car Confections comparison. And be sure to subscribe to show us that you want to see more side-by-side comparisons like this. If you're already a subscriber, we truly appreciate your support. And we thank you for being part of this automotive family. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.